Okay, so now we're going to factor number 12 here. We have a fourth degree polynomial, and there's not really a special strategy to use for this one. So we're going to use the rational roots theorem. We're going to list out the possible rational roots, which again, here we have a polynomial whose lead coefficient is 1. So when we take factors of the constant over factors of the lead coefficient, we really just have to look at factors of the constant. Again, you can rewatch the video on the rational roots theorem for more information on that. So the factors of 42 are 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 14, 21, and 42. So that is a long list, but we'll start with the smaller numbers, and as soon as we find one, we'll be able to make a simpler problem. So let's just start testing. We're going to test with synthetic division. And I'm going to start by testing 1. If I end up with a remainder of 0, this means x minus 1 is a factor. That will be negative 23, negative 10. And unfortunately, it looks like 1 is not a root because this is not 0. And since 1 is not a root, x minus 1 is not a factor. So I just really need to move on to the next one. There's no reason to do these in any particular order, but I just like to start with 1 and negative 1 because they're the easiest numbers to work with. Let's see, that will be 42, which gives me a negative 42 here, and hey look, that's 0. So now, this means my original polynomial factors as x plus 1. Since negative 1 is a root, x plus 1 is a factor. And then the other factor is x cubed plus 2x squared minus 29x plus 42. So now, excuse me, so now I can work with this simpler polynomial, this 1, 2, negative 29, 42, and I can see what is going to be a factor of it. Now there's no reason to try 1 because if 1 were a factor, or if 1 were a root, then x minus 1 would be a factor of that, which means x minus 1 would be a factor of this, and well, it's just not. So let's go ahead and try 2. That was the next possible thing in our list of possible rational roots. That'll be 8, negative 21, and 2 times negative 21 is negative 42, and I have another remainder of 0. So now, that tells me that x plus 1 from up here times x minus 2, because I had a 2 here and a remainder of 0, times x squared plus 4x minus 21. Now I have something that's quadratic, And so I can try to factor it by some simpler means. I need factors of negative 21 that add up to 4. So that'll be x plus 7 times x minus 3. And now I have a linear factorization of this polynomial. Now, a polynomial of degree 4 is as large as I will give you unless it's like this next one. If we look at this next one, number 14, I do have an 8th degree polynomial, but notice that everything has a degree of at least 5. So as my first step, I could factor out x to the 5 and end up with just a cubic that needs factoring. So now I'm going to factor this polynomial. I'm going to do that by taking the possible rational roots. Again, I have a lead coefficient of 1, which is just really nice. So all I really have to consider are the factors of 35. So that'll be plus or minus 1, plus or minus 5, plus or minus 7, and plus or minus 35. I'm going to ignore the x to the 5 and just try to factor this cubic polynomial. I'll start with a 1 again just because it's such a simple number to work with. And that'll be a positive 35. And look at that. Excuse me. So x minus 1 is a factor. I still have to keep that x to the 5 I originally had. And then I have x squared minus 12x plus 35. Now I've got it down to a quadratic. I need factors of positive 35 that add up to negative 12. And that's going to be x minus 5, x minus 7. So there's the factorization of this polynomial function. I hope that helps with just having some additional factoring examples to look at. Again, you really should be very aware of the close relationship between factoring a polynomial and finding the roots or the zeros of the polynomial function. Now that I have it factored, it's easy for me to see that my roots are 0 with a multiplicity of 5, 1, 5, and 7. And I can do that for any of these others. Hopefully that helps, and if you have any additional questions, please let me know in the forums. And I apologize for my lack of voice. All right.